Thank you for coming. Obviously, we don't do these very often. A lot of you have put your heart and soul into this team, and we appreciate most of it. I don't really have anything to tell you that's not going to come out in your questions, so if you've got anything, Eric?
Just thanks for coming, first of all. I think from my perspective, a very disappointing season, but also we see a great opportunity moving forward. We're very excited about this process ahead of us and building this team to be the very best we can be. Excited about that moving forward this spring. Our players are excited, and we plan on getting back to the standard that we've set. Questions?
Steve, good to talk to you.
Good to see you.
As far as whenever you fire a coach after 18 years, there's going to be a lot of speculation as to why and the reasons behind it. For you, what was the biggest reason that led to your decision, and when exactly did you make the decision to fire John Harbaugh?
I staked out a position that I thought I had come to, with a lot of thought and a lot of prayer, and gave it a lot of time to it. I mean, I think I talked to you 3-4 weeks ago, and there's I guess the hardest part was the reasons, and unfortunately, most of these can't get traced back to John necessarily, but you factually, we led the league in giving up big leads in the fourth quarter. It's not something that winning organizations do. We have underperformed based on our seeding in the playoffs. Very disappointing. A lot of players involved, a lot of our great players involved, making mistakes that they don't make during the regular season very often. But I just thought it was something that in the last 10 years, we've won the third most games in the NFL, and yet people were saying we were underachievers. And so we were, and we had to own that. And I really can't tell you the actual time, Jameson, but sometime last week. I wasn't 100% sure until really after the loss, and fell on my instincts, and whatever I was feeling was right. I woke up Monday and I was pretty sure that, I was going to do it. And, I've got great partners here, and spent a lot of time with them and asking them their opinions. And, I made the decision, and it was a hard one. And as you all know, in your life, timing is never right. You can't say that timing is perfect in anything. But I got to the point that I didn't believe that I would feel regret after I made that decision. And that's what instinct is. When you finally get to the point that you're pretty damn sure that you are not going to regret the decision a day or a week later, then that's the time to make the decision. Is that fair?
Steve, did you speak with Lamar before you made the decision, and how would you characterize the influence he or other players' opinions on the situation had on your decision?
Yeah, I talked to a bunch of the veterans, it's funny. As you all know, you've gotten to know Lamar about as well as I have, and Lamar is really, really a non-confrontational person. And when I spoke to him Monday night, he said to me, everybody's saying I got a problem with Monken. I don't really have a problem with Monken. I don't know where that comes from. And he said, and then I hear I've got a problem with Harbs, and I don't have a problem with Harbs. I don't know where that comes from. Do we got to make changes? Probably, but that's probably more for you and E. And I said, well, your opinion matters. And we talked about it. And but again, he was one of the many. I'm going to turn my phone off before it starts ringing. Didn't put it on vibrate. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't think that the players had really a large part of my decision. My partners here probably had, that's an 80-20 thing. And I don't think I'd be a very good leader if I didn't ask the heads of the top players in my organization that have been here the longest. And you can bet they're the ones that have been here the longest. So, no, Lamar did not have an outsized part of my decision. My decision, I think, by Monday was pretty much set.
Steve, right here. You've known John, obviously, a very long time. You're very close. Why the decision to fire him initially over the phone? And then secondly, what was the conversation, the gist of the conversation that you guys had a couple of days later?
Yeah, good question. I never in my mind, I never dreamed of firing somebody by phone, but the reality is when I made my decision on Tuesday afternoon, I was home and he was in his car heading to his house. And I thought it would kind of be a jerk move to call him up and say, hey, coach, meet me at the office in an hour. I mean, he probably would have said, yeah, Steve, I'd rather not. Why don't you just tell me over the phone? And when I did tell him the decision that I made, I said, I'm really sorry about doing this over the phone. I wish we were together. And he said, you don't owe me an apology for that either. Did I answer your whole question?
The second part was just the gist of the conversation, a longer conversation.
Yeah, it was interesting because, obviously it was emotional, and I'll be honest with you, most of that emotion came from me. I told my brother, I said it was the craziest firing in the world. I was the one choked up, and he was the one consoling me. He said, you don't owe me anything, and you can picture, John, you don't owe me anything. He said, you gave me 18 years. He said, you picked a special teams guy. Who does that? He said, you altered mine and Ingrid's life forever because you took a chance on me. I am happy and content and disappointed, but I love you and I respect you and I respect your decision. And, at the time, it was not something that I was going to spend a lot of time with. And so, I called him on Thursday and I left a message and I said, hey, I'm around for the next few hours. I'd love to talk. And he texted me back. He said, I'll call you in about 30 minutes. And we had a really good conversation. And, interestingly, he didn't talk about the details. I talked about the negative narratives of things that we own together. And I said, John, probably one of the things that made it easier for me once I came to this conclusion is I didn't have to worry about whether you were going to land on your feet, because I think either your toes or your heels are already touching, and you're going to become the most sought-after coach in years. And then I talked to him about taking a year off. I said, you're 63 years old. Allison just went to law school. You're an empty nester. If you go to work for somebody else, I get offset, so I'm saving a whole lot of money. But I'd be more than happy to give you a very expensive paid vacation for a year if you and Ingrid would pray on that and come to the decision that You could go out and travel and golf together and rifle. She's a marksman now, and they do love to travel when they're free. And I said, you know, a whole year of that at 63 is a lot different than if you take another job and that is 75. As we get older, you start realizing that, you know, 5-year chunks are changes in your life. And so I really, really, really would have hoped that he took a year off out of this crazy business that you work 80 hours a week and got a chance, because I said, like your friend Sean Payton, you'll still be the hottest coach next year. And you can do a little broadcasting and you can do a little traveling, and then you can get back into it. So sounds from what I'm reading now, he's not going to do that, but he's also interviewing in a real position of strength. So if he doesn't like what he sees and he doesn't like the organization once he digs in, you know, you can bet he's not going to take a job that doesn't have a quarterback. He's a little too young. He's a little too old to be sitting around saying, what's the draft look like, you know, and how many picks do you have? And let's start studying those college quarterbacks. So I only thought there was a couple jobs out there. I told him the one that I thought he could should take, and we'll see if I manifest correctly.
Steve, this is only the second time you'll have to go through the process with your leadership team to hire a head coach. Because you've had so much success in 18 years,
Yeah.
Are you essentially telling your next head coach, you need to get to the Super Bowl fast?
Well, it took Billick 2 years, John 5. Maybe I'll give this guy 6. Yeah, I'll be patient to that point, Jerry. I'd probably give him 5 or 6 years, as long as I like everything else I see in him.
Eric, can you talk about how important it is for this organization to re-sign Lamar Jackson to a contract extension this offseason?
Well, it would certainly give us more flexibility, you know, cap-wise, roster building. I think that we've done a good job. You know, we carried over this year almost $10 million, just over $10 million in money, probably double what we have in the last, you know, however many years, I think. We do have a nice little nest egg. It's not as much as we'd like. A deal with Lamar would give us the ability to be more active, to re-sign some probably more players on the team, and to potentially go after, you know, a couple big-ticket items. We haven't traditionally done that. You know, we've been, as you know, more reserved when it comes to free agency. We like the amount of draft picks we have this year. We do have money to go out and re-sign guys, free agents that we have right now, some good players, certainly, but having more money would be helpful for sure.
Steve, I know it's early days in the coaching search, but is there anything that you have decided that you want to prioritize in hiring the next coach, and is there anything that could be disqualifying for the successor to John?
No, you know, it's kind of interesting because when we started focusing on this, the very first thing that I said to Eric and Sash was, unlike 18 years ago, I am very intrigued by coaches that were the hottest offensive and defensive coordinators 5, 6, 7 years ago in their cycles, and got jobs and went to teams that were non-competitive and didn't have a quarterback. And they grind for 3 or 4 years, and they're caught up in the cycle of many of my partners that are turning these. I think it's average 4 years career, right? I think the head coach is about 4 years. As we proved, I think we've got a quarter out now, right? 8, 9. So, you know, the one thing that I know that I will probably take it on the chin is if our final candidate is an ex-coach who has a losing record, and you all are going to have to understand that we are going to be able to judge that failure with his circumstances and marry that up and not disqualify them. So it's interesting you said, is there anything that's disqualifying? Where we are, I could say I'm disqualifying coaches with losing records, but I think you have to remember that they were the hottest coaches in their cycle, and they got jobs, and they got tough jobs. And I don't think we have a tough job. I think that we got to we created the best opening in this cycle, and so that was the one category that I didn't want to ignore, because the first thing you all are going to say is, my God, he went 38 and 48 in his last job, and they're hiring him. When Tony Dungy said, this is a bad decision, and good luck finding someone better than John, I literally wanted to call Tony and say, you remember John 18 years ago? How can you take our success and use it against me while we're out trying to find the next John Harbaugh? That's impossible. So if I hire an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator, none of y'all can say anything about his poor record the first time he was a head coach. And so it would be very easy for me to try and avoid those ex-head coaches because they have losing records. But I'm telling you, we are keen to their circumstances, and we won't let their first shot at a job influence us negatively for this one. As far as offensive and defensive coordinator, I really couldn't care, because you're bringing in 3 people. So I don't think that it matters for our offense whether a defensive head coach brings in a whiz of an offensive coordinator, or we fall in love with an offensive coordinator and hire him as a head coach, because he's going to go then back and get an offensive coordinator, and then what that brings up is who's going to call plays, right? Whether it's the coach that comes in as an offensive coordinator or the offensive coordinator he picks, which seems to be happening a lot lately. I mean, I believe we have a dozen or so that call their own plays, head coaches, right? On defense and offense, maybe more than a dozen. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Steve, when you make a decision like you did with John, the question is going to come about the general manager as well. What is your evaluation of Eric, especially coming off of this year, and expectations for him? And also, when you're making this hire, will the chain of command remain the same? Will GM and head coach both answer directly to the owner?
Yeah, that's a great question. The hits and misses in this business, I think you have to average them out. I think Eric's one of the best GMs in the league, and so I think he's batting 800. I'm just making up a number for you, but I'm not going to look at Eric's 200 whiffs. I'll look at his 800 singles and doubles and home runs. That, to me, that's fair. I'm very, very pleased with Eric. I know that Eric has been very, very introspective about his failures and how they contributed to our dear friend being shown the door. And so nobody's harder on himself than Eric. So I think I can leave him alone for a while and focus on what we've got here with an empty chair. I'm sorry, what was your second question?
The other question was, will the chain of command remain the same?
That's a really good question, and I've talked to Sash about it. Haven't really talked to Eric about it. I don't spend nearly as much time around here as I did, but when I have both John and Eric Ozzie reporting to me. Oz, you here? Yeah.
Wake up, Oz.
It came naturally in 2008 that they would both report to me, and it never dawned on me. If Ozzie had come to me and said, what do you mean John reports to you? I've been here forever. I've already built a Super Bowl team. I think he should report to me. I think I would have just said, yeah, okay. I don't think it really matters. The reason why I asked if you were here is I don't ever remember. The theory is you two battle it out, and if you ever come to a standoff, I'll be the tying vote. Did it ever happen? No. Not once. So I don't know that I need to burden Eric with that. I think that this is such a partnership that I don't think that power of one over the other is necessarily a good thing, because then the coach goes into every argument feeling like he doesn't have half the power. So I think it works, even though I work remotely, started long before COVID. I invented working remotely.
Steve, a two-part question. One, you kind of went into
You
detail.
guys are all good at two-part questions, aren't you? You get that microphone, you're not giving it up.
We're trying to get them all in.
Yeah, all right.
You were just talking about, what you're looking for in coaches and what basically there aren't any disqualifications. I am curious, are you strictly looking at NFL head coaching candidates? Are you dismissing college coaches? And also, how much input will guys like Lamar and the veterans that you spoke to before moving on from John?
Well, I talked to Lamar last night, and I told him that he and I were both lucky because I found out in the nick of time that there is an NFL rule that if I did one Zoom with one of the 15, are you up to 15 now? 16. If I did one, I had to do them all. Now, working remotely makes that extremely difficult, and so I was luckily, you got me and said, you got to do them all. If you do one, I said, then I'm not doing this first one. So, so like the first time, I want 4, 5 candidates. To answer your college question, I really don't know. I don't know how hard that would be. I know that there's been a couple college coaches that have reached out to us. We did not reach out to college coaches. But if I was a college coach dealing with that portal in the NIL, I'd be at my doorstep. I can't imagine what these guys are going through. I'm friends with some college coaches, and it's a living hell. So if Eric's interested in a college coach, he's welcome to interview him, right? Second question. That's two-part.
The second one was about just how much feedback would you get from guys like Lamar and other leaders on the team in terms of their input on the
I think that Eric made it clear to Lamar that when we get down here talking to him, I think he's texting Lamar after every interview, whether it's Zoom or in person. And I think he's getting some opinions from Lamar. I said to Lamar last night, when they call me up from Florida, you better get your ass up here too. Because if you want to do the interviewing, these are going to be full-day meetings like they were 18 years ago. And they go from department to department to department, right? So I said to Lamar, you can jump on my plane or find another way to get up there after our kicker missed a kick to let them advance. Good for Mike. Yeah, I don't know. Talk to him. I love Mike. I mean, I've admired Mike for 18 years, and that's really shocking that he did it that way. But yeah, that's kind of crazy. Didn't know that. I'll leave that to E. Wow.
Eric, this is a question for you or for Steve if he has one. We heard that Nnamdi Madubuike from John, he would provide his own update, but we haven't really gotten an update in a while. Do you still expect him to share what's going on, or do you have any update on his situation?
On John's situation? On Justin Madubuike, Nnamdi?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can't really discuss that, obviously. I I will say, not having Nnamdi this year was a horrible situation for our team. I think it affected us in different ways, in many ways. A great player, a great person, special person, still working through a lot of his, different ideas and things that we can hopefully get more and more information about his situation. But more than that, I think just I couldn't talk about specifics with him and his situation.
Eric, Steve kind of brought up your role with the roster construction and this season not going the way it did and the result that happened with Harbaugh. What do you see as the biggest roster failures and disappointments on your end with this team?
Well, honestly, when you underachieve, you can blame a lot of things. You look at a lot of situations and players. I think we didn't play consistently from game to game. Some games the offenses played well, the defense didn't perform well. Some halves the offense looked good, the defense didn't. Weak half to half. I think generally speaking, we've got to do a better job of creating pressure on defense. That will help the secondary, I think, being complementary on defense that way, getting after it, affecting the quarterback, affecting the pocket, would be I think something big. I know the offensive line seemed to be a narrative this year. In some games I thought the line played well, in other games we struggled. I think we have pieces. I think we've got to be more consistent on the offensive line. We just didn't gel quite as much this year in that way, and yet I say that, and I think we led the league in rushing, maybe, and that was with less quarterback-driven runs. So I don't think it's one specific thing. I think we underachieved as a scouting staff, as a coaching staff, as players. I think across the board, and we have to own that, and I think we will. I think we're excited about it. We've been in this position before many times over the last 30 years where we've had to rebuild and tweak and change and adjust and really look at ourselves and say, what can we do better? I think it starts with me. It starts with the new coaching staff, and I think the players will be accountable as well.
I think the coaches have to take a lot of that, too, because I think that sitting here last year, everybody said that it was our offensive line and our pass rushing because Eric had to replace 3 offensive linemen, and he did it, and it worked well. And I think we finished second in sacks last year after everybody was calling that our 2 weaknesses. We got in here, and those are the exact same things that everybody said. I think Metabike is part of the reason why Kyle Van Noy went from 10.5 12 sacks to 2. I think it was a domino effect. I think it was a trickle effect. I think Travis Jones being with Broderick gone and Metabike gone, God bless Travis. I think he did the very best he could. But if he had Metabike next to him, he'd have been singled all year long. And instead, they were able to double him all year long. And so, and I think those offensive linemen didn't improve. And so when I said the coaches, that's what I meant. I think that you can look at a lot of guys on our team that we had expected to take the next step that did not take that next step. And we've got to get to the bottom of that with coaching and scouting.
Hey, Steve. Good to see you right here. As far as how important are fan voices when it comes to crafting big decisions? Seeing empty seats at halftime at some of these games or a primetime failure this year, after you guys go through all that you do to put on an incredible spectacle for that game, how important was that? And how do you gauge it? With social media, it can be a really loud voice, and it can be, but a very small minority. How do you go about doing that, and how important is it?
It's not that important, Pete. I just don't know. I know the volume went up this year, and I know the majority of that turned on John. And I think it did affect me. It was one of the things that I'm putting together. And I'll be honest with you, when you say the effect it had, you know what effect it had on me? I couldn't stand people attacking my friend. So some of the stuff that they talked about with John ate me alive. And so, like I said, part of my feeling like when my instinct says, now's the time, it was, I get to relieve John of all that crap too. And John gets to start anew, and John gets to be the everybody's number one choice to be that. And so I kind of thought, again, that there is never a good time, but we went backwards the last 3 years. You know, that to me was a bigger thing, but they're putting that on John and John and John and John. And so, you know, part of it to me was, if the narrative is that bad, then we need to shake it up. And like, again, knowing that John didn't have far to fall, it made it much easier for me to make that decision, right? Because I knew it wasn't going to hurt him that bad. And when I talked to him on Thursday, gosh, he was giving me advice to the Ravens, and I was giving him advice to these openings. And so, I mean, we're going to be friends forever. And now I know John went from being hammered by the press, and I don't know how much Ingrid reads, but I'm sure she does. We've got some protective mama bears out there that don't like their husbands being treated like that. But because it's so anonymous, it's really a major accumulation that I see there. But a lot of them are talking the truth, if you will. In other words, AFC Championship to division round to not making the playoffs, we own that. That's us. And so, unfortunately, John was the one to take it. But if I had fired Eric, he'd have been the hottest GM available in this cycle too. And so, John was the one to go. But it's not a major factor for me. It really isn't. It's our world here, and I think that I'm pretty good at keeping it in my major decisions close to home.
Question for Eric. As you go through this search process looking for the next head coach, what can you share about what's happening in order to conduct this search process and what you're looking for as you narrow down the list to the group of finalists?
Well, fortunately, I think we were prepared, ahead of time, which was good. We started a day late compared to some of our opponents who started on Monday. We started really on Tuesday night. We want leaders. We want the best leader we can find. We want somebody who's going to hold the players accountable. We want somebody who's an expert in X's and O's. We want somebody who the players can relate to, but also somebody that's going to be firm and continue the culture that we've built, which we think is important. And as we've gone through our first 7 or 8 interviews that we've had, it's apparent that this is a job that coaches covet, number one. They appreciate the roster that we have. They admire this organization for the continuity that Steve and Mr. Modell before him put in place. And they see that this is really a destination place for coaches. So I think we're going to be in a good position. There's a lot of interest. I've never been through this process like this. I had no idea how many phone calls that I would get from people, agents, from coaches, people in the media, the national media, the local media. Like, there's just tremendous interest in this particular opportunity. And I feel very confident with our people, with our staff, with Steve, who's an expert in finding people, with Ozzie, who has done this before and found a Hall of Fame coach, along with Steve. Some of the other guys sitting up here, I'm very confident we're going to get the best coach to take us to the next step.
Steve, do you sense an urgency from Lamar to sign another extension?
You know, we want another window, and Lamar knows that. And I think that he's amenable to doing something that that mirrors the last deal he did, although the annual number will be a little higher. But I'm hoping that it's plug a new number in the same contract he signed last year and move on. And the urgency of that matters to me because we've got free agents, and I don't want to go into free agency with that hanging over our head. And I made that clear to Lamar, and I think he was very appreciative of my stance, and hopefully willing to work with Eric and not get this thing dragged out into April like it was the last time. Very hard for him to build a roster when that thing is not settled. So,
Steve, Garrett Dvorkin, the Business Journal. You spent many years running a staffing company. Are there any experiences or lessons that you learned from that chapter you can pull on with this coaching search?
you know, I think I used them 18 years ago to pick John. I've gotten a lot of nice texts from some of the leaders. Most of them are all retired by now. And those were those thin resume guys that I talked about when I introduced John and said, I made my life on people with thin resumes. No, I think most of my recent experience in the NFL, it will be what I'm looking for, because I kind of am a little more tied into what that means. Let me be clear, I am much more interested in the guys like Sasha and Eric and Ozzie that are working with this guy 70 hours a week than maybe I was back then. You know, I was much more engaged. I was engaged in the NFL. I had risen to the top of the committees in the broadcast committee and digital media committee. And, you know, back then probably thought my participation was going to, I dreamed of a gold jacket like the Maras and the Rooneys. And that kind of dissipated as I realized that I was maybe being untrue to my wife when I told her that when I bought this team, I would treat it like more of a hobby than a business. And I think I found myself maybe treating it a lot more like a business. And again, putting family second. And so there was a time in 10, 11, 12 when I realized that in order to earn a gold jacket as an owner, you better be putting in those 70-hour weeks, and I wasn't willing to do that. So when I stepped back from that, and I'm very happy I did, I had enough time to care about the Ravens, and I figured the NFL could survive without me. And so I want very much this person to be picked by Eric and Oz and Sash more than me. When I come in, when they call me in for these 5, I'm going to already know why they love them. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to give just them my honest opinions, my reservations, if there are any, on individuals that may be a red flag that they didn't see. So I would hope that when I spend a lot of time with these people, that I might unearth some things, which I think I'm really good at, unearthing some details that maybe others missed. And I think that I'd like to feed that into them, and if it changes their top 5, you know, then great. And if it doesn't, I want these guys to be partners. I mean, what John and Eric and Ozzie went through these last 10 years, I love John like a brother, but I didn't work side by side with him all day long. And so I know that this is the hardest thing that we've ever had to do, and I don't think any one of you think we blame John completely for our falling off our quest for Super Bowls.
Hey, Steve, over here. I do have a two-part question for you.
I knew you would, Jerry. I'm surprised you didn't have a 4-part question.
If they would allow me, I would. If Tyler Loop makes that field goal, is John Harbaugh still here coaching this team?
For a week.
For a week, okay. And then I guess a follow-up, because it's been a while. What was your role, what was your input with the whole Justin Tucker situation and how that went down and led to Tyler Loop being here? We haven't heard from you about that, so I was anxious to hear.
None.
When the reports came out, how did you take all that? What was your reaction, and how did you?
Deferred to Eric and John.
Do you think if Justin were here, it would have been different?
No.
Fair enough.
I mean, do I think you would have made the kick? Yeah, maybe.
How do you know?
Huh?
How do you know?
How do you know?
Eric.
I feel terrible for
Yes.
Tyler. He's going to be a great kicker. He's going to learn from this. Every one of them have learned from those mistakes. It's a terrible job. I mean, terrible job in the NFL. It really is. You have to work twice as hard to earn people's respect, and then they can hate you in a second. And so I think that kid's resilient enough from what I've learned. He'll be our kicker next year.
He did a great job. Came in big shoes, a lot of pressure. He had a great season.
Eric, this one's for you. Is there a timeline that you have in mind while you're doing several of these head coaching interviews throughout the next week or so? Just because in the sense that they have to then create their own staff as well, I guess, which is sort of assumed, but is that the case if there a timeline just because everything that happens afterwards as well?
Yeah, so I'm kind of thinking of this process like it's a 3-week NFL draft. And, I've been through a lot of drafts, and so this is expedited, certainly. But I think we are trying to get as many interviews done as we can. I've never been a part of this, only once, and we interviewed a much smaller amount of people back then. We didn't have the ability back then to even use Zoom, didn't know what Zoom was. Rules right now kind of force us into that Zoom world. And so we're taking advantage of it. I've learned a ton of football, a lot of stuff in the last week. I think my partners would say the same thing. It's been a fascinating process. We've got, I think another 8 interviews, maybe 9 interviews between now and, believe it or not, Sunday. And maybe a couple more after that. And then we'll kind of take that list of 15 to 20 interviews, candidates, whittle that down to, 4 or 5, try to assemble as a group and figure out, the 5 guys that really resonate with us, that have the most qualities that we're looking for. Craft what that schedule might look like, bring those guys in, again, for a day. We've had a couple guys on site, but, bring those other 5 candidates in, talk to them with maybe a few other people in the loop as well. And then see if we can find a candidate. I think staffing-wise, again, given the rules, very hard for coaches to really fill out their staffs until really around the Super Bowl. It's challenging, and now it's not as easy as it used to be in a lot of different ways. I go back to when Seattle hired Mike McDonald. They waited until after we played in the AFC Championship to interview him for the first time. So we're ahead of the game, I think, in many ways. We've talked to some really good candidates. We've asked them about assistant coaches. That's typically a question that you might ask. What's your staff going to look like? We've been able to get a lot of good information on what their coaching staffs might look like. And then the strategy for us is to really look at, and again, I think it's not just the head coach. It's who is his coordinators, what are they going to look like, offensive line coach, secondary coach, and find the right combination of coaches that make us better.
Steve, you mentioned having some level of patience for the new coach.
Is this for me?
Yes, Steve.
Okay. I'm sorry.
You mentioned having some level of patience for the new head coach. So what will your measures of success be to determine if things are moving forward as you envision for the organization?
Well, if we fail, then I'll assess his contribution to that failure. Because like I said, this is an all hands on deck. When we fail together. And so, yeah, I mean, it's Eric's job to mentor him and guide him in our culture. Hope he understands it and can add to that culture. What we do on the field, it will play a role, but I certainly hope to get back to the playoffs, and I certainly hope to overachieve. It's really hard for me because I'm not doing this to be back like some of my partners doing this every 3 or 4 years. I mean, to me, that's hell on earth. So we're going to make it right, and we're going to make it so right that we're going to have a lot of patience. Is that fair to say?
Hold players accountable. Create foster a relationship where they love this place and love this culture. And football is the most important thing in their lives. And that starts with our scouts, selecting the right players, our coaches, coaching these players, developing these players, and our players living up to the faith that we put in them.
Steve, right here. How's it going? Alex Glaze at WJZ. You mentioned Eric and Ozzy and Sashi being involved in this process. Those are guys obviously you're very familiar with. When you're interviewing candidates, how important is familiarity to this organization, or do you believe like a fresh start completely is something that's needed?
Yeah, that's a really cool question, and it's like we've interviewed people that have been with us, like Anthony Weaver, and I would think that he would be pretty impressive in his interview because of the time he spent here. So you're kind of handicapping fairly a person that has seen us from afar, but has no intimate knowledge of us. And I think Eric's really good at handicapping that knowledge to the lack of knowledge, right? So I would hope that Eric's not swayed by someone who has a lot of knowledge of organization. I hope they don't take the pole position because they might be a better interview because they have such intimate knowledge. I think Eric's pretty smart and capable of handicapping that knowledge and taking it out of it when he's looking at them as equals.
Hi, Steve. Kyle Goon from the Baltimore Banner. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you've said in the past you don't view the Ravens as a family sort of heirloom, sort of have some urgency and desire. And obviously you don't make a change like you did with John without feeling sort of competitive fire. So it's clear that you're feeling that. What's sort of your current vision of how your ownership will progress and what your ownership looks like in the next 10 to 15 years based on how you're feeling now?
I'll be 80, Kyle. I don't see myself being, I mean, all my friends, all my favorite people in the league 25 years ago were younger than I am now. And so when I watch Jerry and Bob, I mean, I still love them to death. They've always been there for me. They were younger than I was when I met them and joined this league. So I know that's always been a topic of conversation. How long am I going to? Because I kind of always said I'm not passing it down to the family. I made that decision 25 years ago. I don't think that's healthy for my family. I've seen families feud and ruin over these damn teams, and I was determined not to do it. But when I watch guys like Art Blank and Steve Ross and Jerry Jones, and Jerry talking about what part of his anatomy he would give up for a Super Bowl at 83 years old, I don't want to be there. I really don't. I want to win a couple Super Bowls and get the hell out. I'd love that to be in the next 10 years when I'm 75. That's my dream. If I got one of the top teams at 75, I'll probably stay till 76. So I'll probably bail somewhere around 10 years from now when I have a really bad season or back-to-back seasons. And he'll probably be coming with me. Right? Eric said he's not a lifer either, so.
Eric, Kevin Richardson with the Baltimore Sun. You talked about the importance of someone rushing the pass rushers and how that affects the defense. Would you be open to trades in the first or second round to get that young stud that can affect your whole defense?
You know, I'm never opposed to getting an elite player. You know, we almost made a trade at the trade deadline. We tried to make a trade. When you get into that mindset that you're one player away, you're ripe to be fooled. And we see it every year when teams make some of these blockbuster trades. You know, oftentimes they end up going the other way, and you just can look at teams. There's so many factors when that happens. I still believe the best way of building the team is, you know, through the draft, because I've seen Ozzie do it so many years and do it at a Hall of Fame level. We will participate in free agency, and we will trade for players. We've done that. It's got to be right player, right price. If there's a elite Hall of Fame type talent that's available that we think can come in and be, as Steve likes to call them, game wreckers, we'd look at that. We consider that very strongly. But to do that for a really, really good player and have to pay the exorbitant price and also give up all the draft pick capital, that can set your franchise back for a long time, as we've seen.
All right, we'll do two more, Jameson, and then Ken will close it out. Okay. Steve, you did mention that you invited Lamar to come up for the interviews if he wants to, the final round of interviews and everything. When it's all said and done, how much of a say will Lamar have in the head coach selection?
A lot of say, but he has no power. I have the power. They have opinions, and I want them all. I care about my players very much, but I can't give them power.
Steve, there was a time when fans looked forward to hearing from you all the time. I think we called it State of the Ravens. We used to hear from you just about every year. Why did you stop, and can we look forward to hearing more from you in the future?
Like Seinfeld, I ran out of good material. I had to retire, and then he goes out, and next thing you know, he's doing like 80 shows a year. It's like, Jerry, I thought you were retired. So I don't know. I just always felt like if I put these guys in charge and they got us to the playoffs, look, they gave me and I appreciate the local guys and like Jeff and Jameson, who are in national publications, but the majority of their focus is on us. And the national guys don't look at us as in crisis. And I think the closer you get to us, you see crisis by us failing right now. I just got to the point that I didn't see the benefit of sitting up here and dissecting losing in the division round. To me, it wasn't fair, because it was the leaders that were making the decisions that were going to give you the best information. And I think one time I got up here and they said, how close were you to firing John Harbaugh? And it was like, that was about the time I decided that I don't need to be up here, because I thought that your questions were so narrow to an owner of a team that had made it to the division round that I just didn't think it was fair. I was probably going to put my foot in my mouth, which I'm really good at doing that too. And so I just bailed. I just kind of said to you guys, when we don't make the playoffs, I'll be there for you. But when we make the playoffs, I'm just going to leave it to my specialists to explain it all to you and what their plan is forward. And then interestingly enough, this is happening right now, and it would usually happen right now. And, we haven't been to Jupiter, and that's when I will grill my leaders on their plan. They will have 2 more, 3 more, 5 more weeks. Now, this could be different. I mean, we may be doing Jupiter in April for all I know. And Eric's going to go, I ain't got time for that. It's the draft. She's in
I will say that.
I know. Trust me, I know. So I don't know when we're going to do it. Maybe we'll skip Jupiter this year, but that's why. It wasn't a mean-spirited thing. I promise you. I quite like being up here talking to you all. I know how much time you put into our team, and I appreciate it very much. And so don't be fooled by my absence that I have lost my respect and appreciation for this being your job, your whole job. And you want answers. And I will tell you today, the respect that I've heard here is off the charts. Like, I read Jameson's analysis and anatomy of the thing. I read Jeff's. I think you could put that all together and publish it and just say, you got all your answers. Because they're fair-minded guys. They've been with here forever. They're my two favorites because they're the two longest. Well, Mike, I'll throw you in there. You've been there as long as they have. So you're just a little meaner sometimes. So maybe you're in third place, okay? But I'll give you, out of respect for your tenure, I'll give you third place. I love your love and your passion for my team. And what I heard today was people that I really believe came in here open-minded and willing to give us the benefit of the doubt. And I want you to know how much I appreciate that, because what I was most worried about was that you want to get into the details. And I've got some little things that rubbed me the wrong way for a long time, and you put them in the back of your head. And then you get closer, and then you start failing, and then you bring back things that bothered you, and you do it to justify coming to the conclusion that now is the time. And I just hope you respect me enough to know that 100% my instincts told me this was the time. And I may be right, I may be wrong, but I did it because I'm in charge of doing it. And your lack of digging into details saved us a lot of time, because I would have told you, this is like you all interviewing me and saying, let's talk about your divorce with your wife of 18 years. And can you tell me all the little things that like really built up to... We love John like a brother, and it was really the most difficult decision that we made, right? But we made it. And the fact that you all are willing to just say, I don't need to hear any of the sort of details. It's the big picture. We want the Ravens to succeed. I felt it was the right time to make the change. If not now, when? I guess is what I'm saying. Next year, I heard that we were contemplating, I wasn't even the decision maker, contemplating replacing the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator. And that may have been the final nail in the coffin. I thought, if I'm already here and my gut is telling me it's time, why would I let John rebuild an entire staff? Because I'm going to be sitting here next year saying, what the hell did I do last year? Last year was the time. So it wouldn't have been fair, because I think we had run our course. And if I didn't have the guts to say to my partners, you're on the fence and I'm on the fence and I'm slipping on this side, and I believe that your love for John and your respect for John is holding you back this much. I need you to move this much. I tried to take my love and respect of John out of it, and it's his best friend. So I don't know that he could. And I admire him for it, but I had to look at them and say, you're pretty close to me, you're not there. I'm going to push you over the edge. I'm going to make the decision. And I made the decision by myself. and they understood. We had already talked about why I was there, and I didn't need them to come to my side of the fence for me to make this tough decision. So it was a wonderful, wonderful marriage. We accomplished great things. The next coach we get, I want him to be a Super Bowl winning coach too. And God bless him if he can rise up to the level John did and be staring at a gold jacket. So that's our job. We take it serious. And thank you, all right, for being professional enough to know how hard this was for us.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, guys.